Ladies and gentlemen, Ramin Barani. I'm afraid this Q&A session will interrupt our conversation about Lars von Trier and Nymphomaniac, but we can take that up later.
No, we can start now. Has anyone seen it, part one? Yeah. I think more than about sex and relationships, I think it's about filmmaking, the movie. And the Charlotte Gainsbourg character is him, her name is Joe, and Skarsgård is him. And I think he's talking about filmmaking.
To himself.
Big time, I think. Is he just making film, or does he still have a passion in it, or is it mechanical now? Yeah. A terror that every artist has. Yeah. I think it's about this more than anything else. Yeah. I like his, by the way, his books are on my bookshelf.
Oh, his DVDs are on my bookshelf. I just want to say one thing very quickly. This is a filmmaker who is extremely precise and extremely thoughtful about every creative choice he makes. And I know this not only from hearing him speak about his films here and other occasions, and also because you can see it in the work, obviously, but also because he has fantastic DVD commentaries on his work. And I recommend that if any question you have about the film goes unanswered tonight, or if you just want to know the film in a lot more depth and richness, you should really not only see the DVD, but also do play the director's commentary, because it's almost a shot-by-shot explication of the movie. In fact, I'm embarrassed to say that when I rewatched the film without the commentary, I made a bunch of notes and found that he had anticipated everything I was going to ask him. So I got that with Herzog too. I mean, he seems to. But anyway, so I'm going to play dumb and keep asking him these questions. If you should feel free to do the same. So first, I wanted to ask you, you should probably tell us a little bit about the making of the film, the background, what brought you to the project, how you shot it, and so forth.
When the movie started, I realized I don't remember the film so well.
We want to talk about that opening, do we? We do want to talk about that.
Okay, because you don't really watch the movies anymore. Once you see it once with the audience, it's only Plastic Bag is the only film I ever watched.
You can have that on a loop, actually.
It's the only film I kind of like to watch every now and again, maybe because of Werner. I had met a taxi driver from Senegal in my hometown of Winston-Salem, and I was just taken by him, by the way he was, by his spirit. He was something similar to what I had written. And at that time, I was staying at my brother's house, and to get to my brother's house, you would have to pass 2 assisted living homes. And I would see an old man standing on the side of the road with a walker every day. And I thought there was something very sad that his last years of his life was to be standing by the side of a road alone. And I honking and wave at him every day. And so he started to wave at me. And we became friends by waving at one another. And one day I just thought, what if he got into the taxi with this guy I had met, the driver, and the movie just kept building from there.
That's interesting. But still, you had to fill a little bit of the background of every character. I mean, one of the fascinating things about the film is how many gaps and depths you leave unspoken. But what led you to the particular configuration of, for instance, the Red West character, William, and his grandson?
Should we at least say who Red West is?
Oh, yeah, Red West, a monument, actually.
Yeah, you must know who it is. Oh, you don't know who he is. It is amazing. Well, I was getting tapes from, we called all the casting agencies, the local ones in the South. I really wanted someone from the South. And tapes started coming in. At that time, believe it or not, still VHS tapes would come. And I saw the tape for about 3 seconds. I hit pause. I turned to the person next to me and said, that is the guy right there. That's him. And I looked him up. It's Elvis Presley's best friend from childhood. They grew up together, and then he was part of the Memphis Mafia and wrote about 4 or 5 Elvis songs, and then became a stunt man in movies, and then an actor. And he's been in about maybe 40, 50 movies, including 2 films with Oliver Stone, Natural Born Killers and U-Turn. And he did Coppola, the Rainmaker. He plays the dad who never talks. That's him. But he never had a leading role.
You also said he was in The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance as well.
He was a stunt man in The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance and played chess with the Duke. Can you imagine? I mean, the greatest filmmaker ever to come out of America, John Ford. He played chess with Wayne on set.
But you'd written most of that character's elliptical backstory before you cast him, hadn't you?
Once we cast Red West, we started to erase even more because his face had everything in it. I think his face should go to the Smithsonian, and you should see it as a.
So
It
what
could
about
be a Jem Cohen's movie, Museum Hours, and
what about Soleiman Sisevan?
yeah, Suleiman. Okay, so I wrote the first draft, and then I went back to New York to make Chop Shop, and 1 year later I went back to start to get Goodbye Solo cooking. Chop Shop, I was in finishing the sound, and I went back and I sat down with the taxi driver. And I had written the script for him. It had his name on it. The name of the film was his name. And we went. He avoided me for a while. I didn't know why. And when I met with him, he said he's not going to do the film, the real guy. And it was a blow because I just couldn't imagine the movie without him. I didn't know what to do, and I thought I should cancel the film. 2 days passed, and someone knocked on the door, and it was a friend of mine that the film is dedicated to. Sandra Trujillo. We've been friends since childhood, and she had cancer. And she had cancer, she had recovered, and it had come back. So it was clear that she wasn't going to make it. She knocked on the door, and I said, "What are you doing here?" And she said, "Well, I'm here for us to go casting." I said, "What do you mean?" She's like, "Well, I speak Spanish. Let's go look for the character of the daughter and the wife." And she was smiling and had a lot of energy. I felt so ashamed that I was going to sit at home and quit, that I got up, I said, "Let's go." And we started casting. And that last year of her life, she had so much energy in the face of what she knew was coming. And she ended up becoming a big part of the film and the spirit of the film. And in many ways, it reminded me also of Roger. And this is what I was alluding to in the beginning, about how you have to deal with something you know is coming, and how your family deals with it, how your friends deal with it, how you have to come to accept that. And it's a big part of the film anyway, because the Solo's character, he wants to do what he wants to do, which is he wants to save this person because he comes to care about him and he thinks that's what he should do. And somehow in the course of the film, he's coming to understand that if you love someone, you have to let them do what they want to do, even if what they want to do is painful or is incomprehensible to you or means going into a void that is potentially you can't return from it. And that's part of his journey in the film.
It's remarkable how he becomes more subdued, less exuberant across the film, and not quite to the same level, but the way William kind of comes out of himself a little bit, is a little more expressive and so on. It's a fascinating kind of double movement you have there. But it is about letting go. I was reminded of what you said when thinking of Anne Hoy's film, the same thing. If you love someone enough to let them go.
Very painful. It could be in your relationship with a friend, with a lover, with a parent, with anyone. In this film, it ends up going into death, and also a death that someone wants to do on their own. Any explanation then just has to get erased, because this would make if Solo knew he had X, Y, and Z incurable disease, his decision in the end to help him go there would have been slightly easier. And we wanted it to remain more mysterious and more challenging.
The mystery of it is really interesting because you leave just enough hints to keep the movie going, and the curiosity that Solo has about him gets passed to the audience, and we do want to know more, and we get a few more clues, though it's not really a detective story. but it does give the film a certain momentum, but yet at the same time it's so tactful, you don't feel that you should have been told more. It just seems like a really good balance between leading us into the world of the fragments we get of his life, and at the same time not giving an easy answer that would let us hook our sympathies to one thing or another.
Yeah, I mean, I think we know that. What answers do I have to give? I'm, by the way, as confused as you. I have no understanding of what the hell is going on around me, and trying to make sense of it every day. So I haven't any answers really, and there's no. The doors can't be closed anyhow. They should be left ajar so that you can go through them.
One thing you did in your script, I think, is fascinating to leave those doors ajar, is the opening. I don't think there's any more compressed opening in American cinema. I mean, one shot, laughing, why are you laughing? And then immediately we get the place, Winston-Salem, we get what the deal is, I paid you this, come on, you don't want to do this, why do you want to do this, you're not going to kill yourself, right? And so on. I mean, in 2.5 minutes, and you talk about this on the disc, it's really fascinating. It's almost as if you say, let's get as much plot out of the way as we can.
Well, you know, it was like, I assume if you read the synopsis to come see the film, well, you have an idea of what it's about. Why waste 10 minutes of time? Let's just get into it. And so he said, forget the establishing, there's nothing to establish anyway. Eventually you'll see there's a town, and eventually you'll learn something about them. So it was just get into it right off the bat with this, basically what the film is about. Why are you laughing? Because the guy wants to die and the other one wants to laugh. And that's the conflict of the film. And I wanted to do it in one shot because why not? And I wanted to see them both at the same time. I didn't want to cut back and forth. I wanted to see them reacting to one another. I think maybe we did 24 times, something like that.
The economy of your style is really interesting. I mean, one of my favorite shots in the movie, which is not as heavy with exposition as that one, though, it's really so concise, is when Solo is doing his audition with the recruiting team, and you just see him standing in front of a window, barely see a couple people's heads, and this plane goes by. That's all you need to see. That's it. You don't need the establishing shot of the building or him going inside. All that extra, filler material you would get in most movies. He's there. That's why he's there. You see it right away.
R.J. Reynolds Airport from when I was a kid, and I thank the Reynolds family to arrange a plane. And when there's no money, it's always exciting to be like, okay, cue the plane. I was like what is the action filmmaker's name? Jerry something?
Jerry Bruckheimer?
The guy who couldn't improvise on stage
Michael Bay. Yeah.
I felt like Michael Bay. Cue the airplane.
For the first and only time, I think you have compared yourself to Michael Bay. Yeah.
Hope it's the last time.
The concision or the tightness of your approach is something I really marvel at. Is that something that's really totally scripted, or do you discover it in editing, or is it kind of both?
Both, yeah. In editing, you'll of course find ways to be more economical. Always, yeah.
And once you're so tight about the storytelling, it strikes me that you can actually be more open about the other stuff. For instance, one of the things I find just fascinating in this movie is the different ways these guys walk. And you let them have their own time to cross a parking lot or walk into the motel, and you could actually see almost their entire characters in the way they walk, sort of bounciness, of Solo, and that sort of world-weary trudge that William has. It's just given to us, and it's fun to watch. It's enjoyable to see that expressive quality of each man just in their behavior. You don't need dialogue, anything like that.
And their faces.
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah. The faces are amazing.
Both of them have such good faces.
Yeah. It's very tight. You talked a little bit about playing it in one shot. I just have a kind of a technical question. On the DVD commentary, you and your cinematographer, Michael Simmons, talk about how you were something like wrestling with a shot, reverse shot, that you didn't use it as much before. Am I getting that right?
Well, Man Pushcart and Chop Shop, probably 80% of the movie the scenes were done in moving masters. So there's one shot covering the 2-minute scene, and no coverage, meaning there's no extra shots that you can cut out of. It's just you have to get it right. This is complicated on set because it's got to be timed well. you can't have a dull moment in there because you won't be able to
Nothing
cut
cut
it
away
out.
from.
Right. And suddenly on Goodbye Solo, I was like, this film really needs to have a different style. And I had never done a different style.
Uh-huh.
And I never went to film school.
Yeah,
And I never worked in the film industry.
yeah.
So I was like, how do you do that? So then I started studying how to do it.
That's great. You also said, I think, on the commentary, and this is interesting in terms of the performances, that Red West asked you if there was going to be a table reading, and you said,
What is a table reading? I didn't know. We started to do it, but it was so boring. I just asked him if we could stand up on our feet and do some rehearsing of the scenes, and he agreed. I did have to do table reading on my last film. I didn't enjoy it either. It was boring.
Also, I have to wonder, did anybody ever ask you to have William say the line that's the title of the film? Because, of course, it's not said. And you get Goodbye, William, but you don't get the echo. And I'm wondering, we get it, but did anyone ever say in production or distribution or anywhere down the line, you really should put that in? It kind of ties up the whole thing.
I think maybe someone did, but I zoned out.
Yeah. Works much better this
Better
way.
without it,
Yeah. Well, let me look at my watch. Okay, we have a little time. I'm going to ask you a couple more things, and we can open up for questions. One of the things that struck me seeing it again was the parallels between William and Solo as family men. William's keeping his a secret, but then getting back in touch with his grandson, whereas Solo is working it out, is still figuring it out. But he becomes a father in the course of the film. How much of that is planned, and how much do you want to build an interpretation out of it, or?
Well, I mean, part of Solo's journey is to somehow be able to make his own decisions, because actually what he's doing to William, which is trying to tell him what to do, is happening to him in his life.
Right.
His buddy Rock is like, deal drugs with me.
Mm-hmm.
His wife is saying, if you love me, do these things. You have to do this.
Right.
The dispatch is literally telling him, you have to go right, you should go left, you should go forwards, you should go backwards. So he's not deciding on his own. And that's part of what he's up to, and that leads to that scene with his wife, with the baby.
Mm-hmm. Never want to do it my way.
Yeah, I love you, I want to be with you, but give me a break. I want to do what I want to do.
Yeah.
And in fact, the boy playing the grandson, I don't show the script to the actors. Only Red West and Solo saw a script.
Yeah, this is very important, that most of the actors didn't see the entire script, right?
It was my third film and the first time anyone ever saw a script.
Oh, okay.
Red West saw the script, and I was hiding the script from Solo for a long time, but I realized he was better at improvisation if I gave him the script. So then I gave him the script. And that was the first time I gave any actor a script. Everyone else in the movie had no idea what the film was about. And they didn't see words on a page. I would tell them the dialogues, and then they would remember enough of it to say in their own way. And the boy in the cinema had no idea what the movie was about.
Well, wasn't he in your crew or something?
He was an intern. He was a student at the film school there.
Oh, okay.
And he was an intern in the casting sessions. He would work the camera. And he looked kind of like he could be Red West's grandson.
Yeah.
And there was something friendly about his face. And I remember he emailed me when he saw the movie, and he's like, oh my God, that's what the movie's about?
But that's another example of the tightness, I think, because you give the shot of him, and he's lit enough that we kind of pay attention to him the first time we see him when he goes to the movie box office. And then I always think, he's got to be important because, and this is how fine-grained your approach is, I think, we don't see Porkchop. In any other movie, we would see Porkchop, bandying words with Solo, the dispatcher at the cab company.
Now, we have to say, Porkchop was played by Peaches. Porkchop, by the time I wanted to make the movie, didn't work there anymore. And she wouldn't do the film. So I tracked her down. It was really hard to find her. I found her in I think at that time she started working in a Shell gas station, and she wouldn't do the film. So then Peaches agreed to do the film. Peaches wanted to be a singer. And I said, I love your voice, Peaches. I want you to be the part, but would you please accept the name Porkchop? But Peaches didn't look like Porkchop. Porkchop looked like Porkchop, and Peaches had gotten the flu as a kid, and her grandma fed her peaches until she got better. And then her name became Peaches since she was a child.
She also had the tattoo, right?
And she had a tattoo of peaches. How do you know that?
I can't remember, but anyway, but no, it's fascinating that, but it's fascinating that you don't see her, and in another kind of movie, she would be a bit player. She'd be thrown in quick one-liners and stuff like that. Whereas the son, who barely has any, grandson, who barely has anything to do, he gets kind of beat in the plot.
Well, good. We can imagine who Peaches is in our own mind.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, why don't we take some questions then? Are the floor people ready to deploy?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, thank you. First of all, I'm a North Carolinian, and I want to thank you for this wonderful film that's so associated with North Carolina. My friends from North Carolina, when we talk about really terrific movies set in our state that are expressive of sort of the North Carolina feeling, it's always this movie and Junebug. That's
and which one?
And Junebug.
Junebug. Yeah, I know them. Angus
which is also
and Phil,
played here.
Yeah. From whence it's the same town.
Yeah, right. Well, yeah, I think it's a Mamers or Spivey's Corner, but in any event. Two quick questions. One is, did you elect to film the Blowing Rock scene in foggy weather, or was that just mischance when the crew was there? And then the other question is, I know that a standard sort of precept of filmmaking and of writing fiction is show, don't tell. Try to always show things instead of directly state them. And so the disclosures that Solo learns by reading the notepad, I wanted to ask you about that decision, because that had to have been sort of a tough decision, because it sort of moves in the direction of outright disclosure, but you nicely stopped short. So it seemed to me to be kind of an edgy decision to make, to include that or not. So wanted to ask about that as well.
The notebook, we like to put the notebook because it seemed to make things harder. That if Solo came to understand that actually William did have some emotion about him, and Alex, his stepdaughter, that it would make things harder, especially because the dialogue about the stepdaughter relates to the future, which is about continuing to live. So I thought it was good because it would make things more challenging ahead and help with Solo's request that I need my stepdaughter to come with me.
It's interesting it would have hooked into, because he clearly has a regard for her. He even hooks, the comment that he makes about her future hooks back to the curtains. We see her fiddling with the curtains.
Correct, yeah. And I think that stepdaughter and William are very similar, actually. They love, but they're independent also. They don't kill you with their love. They don't destroy, because oftentimes love ends up becoming very destructive. And Chop Shop has a lot of that in it. The first question was about the fog. Oh my God. Okay, well, I had an intern in Blowing Rock who would every day send me a photograph so I would see what was happening. And we kept delaying and readjusting the schedule for the leaves. And it kept getting pushed back. It ended up happening very late that year due to the rainfall. The color of leaves is impacted by how much rain does or doesn't come. And we ended up shooting the scene actually around October 20th. I think we shot maybe 19, 20, 21. And the first day was raining and not foggy at all. The next day was so foggy, some crew members couldn't get to the set. They got lost. You actually couldn't see. And it was what I had always dreamed for the final part would be fog. So we scrambled and reshot everything from that day plus that day's work. So we ended up shooting 2 days worth of footage in one day, which you had to move really fast. And then I got what I dreamed, which was this mysterious fog. I dreamed about it, not I wanted it. I dreamed about it, like you were ready to destroy things to get the fog. That's different than wanting.
Next question.
You want a slice of pizza, but fog is another thing.
From the balcony in the center.
Hi, I hope I'm not off base here, but I see a lot of influence in your filmmaking in Iranian cinema. I was hoping you could comment on that, and also Taste of Cherry, which seems to share a lot of plot elements, but maybe you don't know anything about that. Thanks.
Oh yeah, my parents are from Iran. I lived there in my early 20s. I went there for, I thought, 6 weeks. It turned into 3 years. I've always had a regard for many styles of cinema, including Iranian cinema. Yeah, I work now with Amir Naderi, who's a great Iranian filmmaker, made The Runner. We actually wrote my new film together, and he wrote Abbas's first script, in fact. Of course, my co-writer on that film, we knew Taste of Cherry, and we thought, because it will be referenced, what do we do to quickly get away from it? In that film, the main character is a character who wants to kill himself. So we flipped ours quickly to the main character being the one who wants to stop it from happening.
There's a lot more uncertainty in the Taste of Cherry. He's the
Oh,
driver, and he keeps picking up people,
Yeah.
and it's not clear why.
Yeah. So of course I understand there's a connection to it, and we did everything in our power to go in a completely other direction. Mainly, the main cinematic influence ended up being, and kind of how the story I didn't mention really started to come into my mind was Rossellini. Flowers of St. Francis, which he made after his war trilogy of Rome, Open City, Paisan, and Germany Year Zero, which were films heavily influenced by the war. And I think he had just gotten burned out of doing that, and he thought that at that time the world needed something else, which was a film about St. Francis and the spirit of St. Francis, which he co-wrote with Fellini, in fact, and it's my favorite Rossellini film. And at the time the story was originating, we were knee-deep in the war, actually, and every movie that was coming out was about the war. And so I thought, well, maybe we can do what Rossellini did and bring a movie that was about the spirit of St. Francis, which somehow is connected to Solo, that would be the opposite of what was happening at that time in reality of war and in the artistic world of cinema and other forms of art that were so kind of mired by the darkness of the war.
It's a film of Rossellini's I like very much too, and I think people who enjoyed this film would like, even though it's at the superficial level, it's not so much like it, but it does in tone and theme have a lot to do with this. I see that. Anything else?
Next question is from the floor to your far, far right.
Hello.
Hello. Great seeing you again at the festival. Love every single one of your movies. My question, your latest movie, which came out a few months ago, At Any Price, is on the surface a little different from the rest of your movies. It has recognizable Hollywood stars. It has more peripheral stories than the other movies. Is that the direction you see yourself going, or is this a one-off and you're going to go back to movies like Goodbye Solo and Chop Shop?
Going back, I'm not going to do, because I don't like to go back. I want to go forward. I don't like nostalgia, really. No, 99 Homes is At Any Price, but more. More meaning more what I wanted to do, and still trying to figure out how to do. I think interesting. 99 Homes, I'm sorry, is a new film. I'm finishing the editing now. I think it's a more blend of what my previous work was and where I'm trying to go, which I got half right with At Any Price and half wrong somehow, I think, to tell you honestly. I think some parts of it I liked, some parts I didn't quite get. And now the new one, I think I got to what I wanted. So now I have it, for the film, I'm starting to think what I'm going to do next. You know, you open the drawer, there's 20 ideas. You got to start seeing which one you're going to do. Now I have another challenge that I want to try to get to my next film. Usually I want to do something I don't know how to do it. You too.
And by the way,
Next
just a quick question, when would we expect to see 99 Houses?
I think 99 Homes, 99 Homes probably will be in the fall circuit. You know,
Won't go to any of the festivals, Venice?
I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope so. Venice, I did 3 films in Venice and 1 in Cannes. So hopefully, if they like it, Venice, Toronto, Telluride, that world, if we're lucky. But let's see.
Okay, great, thanks. Yes, sorry.
Okay, ever so slightly to your left.
On Wednesday, we saw Life Itself, which you were in. We learned about a very special jigsaw puzzle that Roger gave you. I'm very curious, have you put it together yet? Or have you even opened the box?
No, I'm very conflicted about putting it together. Anyway, there's a mystery in the box that it gives me energy, and I worry if I put it together, I would lose something. So I'm conflicted about putting it together. The same way earlier today, somebody asked me to tell them something, and I told them I can't tell you that because I thought if I told them, by the time it came out of my mouth and went to them, I would have lost it. So at the moment, I'm holding it, sitting there. I'm more curious about who I'm going to give it to tell you the truth. No. I think it just one day it's going to be obvious what to do with it. But I'm not sure Roger put it together either. We can confirm with Chaz. I thought sometimes it's not good to put things together.
Do you want to take this moment, thanks to the question, to say anything you haven't said yet about, Roger's influence on your career? I mean, the thing that strikes me is that he spotted your talent very early and was a very strong supporter. I mean, really, I think, appreciated what you were doing earlier than anybody else, and invited you here with, your first 2 films and then this eventually. This is a pretty unusual situation, I think, in most film. People, you think of Pauline Kael supporting Altman's mid-career works and then falling out of love with those films. And what, apart from the obvious advantages it gives you in terms of, saliency in the market, what exactly, did Roger's support mean for you?
Courage, yeah. Not to quit, not to go the wrong direction, to believe you can, to challenge yourself to do things you don't know how to do them, not to make X film because you think you should do it, and just to keep doing what you're doing. Especially when I look at the filmmakers that he was so supportive of, the way he was with me, and it's like all of my heroes. Herzog, Mike Lee, Scorsese. So then, well, it's also not just courage, also some part of it is like a burden almost, where I'm like, oh my God, what if Roger doesn't think this is good? And I always have this in my mind, and what if he...
Scorsese talked about that, what if he doesn't like my next one?
It's in the best way that you think about it, because you're like, it has to be at the highest level of cinema, otherwise you feel like you're going to go sit next to your dad and things like, try again, So, I really wanted him to see 99 Homes. When we never talked about, I never talked to him really about what I was doing. Without any price, I just said the movie's about this. I think I was with Chaz. Is Chaz here? I think we were at the conference on World Affairs. We were driving from the hotel to the Red Lion. I think in 1 minute I told you the synopsis. And then when I came to the hospital, I think in 2 sentences I told Roger what 99 Homes was about, and he did. There was nothing else to say, and it didn't make sense to talk about it because he would see the film one day. So we didn't really talk about that.
He did review it at any price, yeah.
Oh, thank God, yeah, he did like it. Yeah, he liked it. I wanted him to see this one.
Okay, next?
Next question from the balcony to your left, all the way at the top.
Oh yes, way up there.
Thank you very much for bringing this film and being here at the festival. The scene I wanted to ask about so much when I'm watching is the scene on the rock and how that filming took place, how the actors approached it, how you approached it, the risks they were willing to take. I'm just really interested to know how that went.
And the handheld stuff, because it's one of the rare cases, I think, where the handheld shots are justified because you feel the wind. You can actually feel the wind.
It's the only handheld stuff in the film. Yeah, by choice. Nothing. You just be safe, really. I don't want to say because it ruins it. Let the magic of the movie be the magic of the movie, because if I tell you how X, Y, and Z was done, it would be like pulling the curtain and we're going to see everything is going to be, I don't want to reveal the...
I mean, for instance, the safety measures you took and things like that?
Yeah, because then it would ruin it somehow. Is it okay?
Sorry.
Well, in fact, okay, that I can answer. Like any good actor, Solo told me he could drive a car, and then I learned he had no idea how to drive and didn't have a license. Okay, So I brought him to North Carolina, and he lived in North Carolina for a few weeks before we shot the film, and he got a license, and he also got a taxi license. And there's that bearded man who says, "Solo, you forgot your jacket, or you left this jacket." That was Ken. Ken was his guide, so Solo would drive, and Ken would tell him where to go because he didn't know the city. And Ken was an alcoholic, so you were only allowed to give Ken a certain amount of money every day, or he would drink himself to death. So you couldn't give him. I thought he should get X amount of money, which would have been a good day's work. But the woman who ran the taxi cab said you cannot give him that much money. It will be bad news. So then he learned how to drive, and the good thing was Solo would make money, and I wouldn't have to give him money for food. And we didn't have a lot of money to make the film, so he funded his own pre-production, which is good. If you're a filmmaker, it's a good technique. And then we go to shoot the final scene, and Solo tells me he's scared of heights. So maybe it added to the emotion of the film.
Thanks. Any more?
Your next question comes from the back, slightly to your right.
Oh, yes.
Can you say anything about your use of sound? There's one point that I noticed where a car door opens and it's like a gunshot. It just wakes you up.
I love sound. I love sound because I just wrote an email to the financier of my new film about how he needs to double the sound budget because I'm obsessed with sound. I think for example, in the final scene with the wind, I had so many tracks of wind that they had to pre-mix one time just to then add like 20 more layers of sound because it wouldn't fit on the computer. I think in At Any Price, we had to do the same thing with the wind turbines. They mixed together, I think, 20-some sounds to make one sound, and then we added maybe 20 more on top of it. I love sound, and the movie has no score, and Chop Chop had no score either, so you start to really rely on sound design to...
A lot of sound bridges in the film, linking scenes.
Yeah, exactly.
The one thing I remember is you mentioned this on the commentary where this is again goes back to the real kind of exquisite precision where at one point Solo's looking at the kid in the movie theater from inside the cab, and we hear a motorcycle off, which is an echo of the fact that William said he used to drive motorcycles.
Exactly,
yeah. I mean that's the kind of fine detail that you work with.
Well, especially when your stories it's not a lot of story, then these things really have to work. When you have more story, then these things can come a little bit more into the background.
This will be your final question, and it's in aisle.
Hi, thank you. I wanted to say that, like you, I was born and raised in Winston-Salem and spent several years living in Blowing Rock. There's a town there, it's not just a rock. And so I was curious what you think the advantages and disadvantages are of working in an area that you know so well, physically.
Well, the advantage was learning about things I didn't know, which is what I prefer to do in any film. I was going into neighborhoods that I'd never been in. I was spending time with people that I didn't know. So, and I spent several months with the real taxi driver doing the night shift, so from 10 until early in the morning, including picking up his friend and shuttling things around town. The first time that happened was kind of weird because I'm sitting in the car, and he's standing there. I was like, "Who the hell is this?" Yeah. And the guy was like, "Oh, he's all right. He's all right." He's like, "What do you mean he's all right?" Is this in
the Homicide neighborhood?
Homicide Circle, yeah. Which I don't know if you hang out in Homicide Circle, but I certainly don't. And in fact, my parents been in Winston-Salem since the 70s, and they had no idea where any of these places were. In fact, we were at a location I cut out of the film, but we were at a Church's Chicken in a rough part of town, and we were doing a location scout, a tech scout, 2 days before shooting. So it was like me and maybe 6, 7 people, and a cop pulled up, unrolled the window and said, "What the hell are you guys doing here?" I said, "We're doing a tech scout for a movie." He said, "Do you know where you are?" I said, "Yeah." And he was like, "Good luck." And he just laid a wheel and pulled out of there. And everyone on the crew turned to me and was like, what's going on?
No need for permissions here, yeah?
Don't worry about it. It'll be a good shoot.
We could go on all night, obviously, and I wish we could, but, time presses. So let's thank Ramin again, please.
Thank you.